I've pulled the truck up onto the flat to unload the two groups of auction lots from the New Zealand sellers. But as we walked around to do the paperwork on the car yesterday, the first thing Rose did was ask about all his houseplants. So she acquired a carload. She brought them home in her new car. So she got a new car with a bonus group of succulents and other houseplants. Some she's been wanting to add to her inventory all along. And now she's got them. So she's dispersing those now. But it became apparent that they're running out of days over at their house, the sellers, and had hardly touched their basement, it appears. So I've been invited back tomorrow to bring the trailer and see what I can salvage that could either be put to use out here, passed along to people we know, or sold for a profit to cover the expense of moving it. Because no matter how far you're going or what you're getting, you've got to cover the fuel these days and your time and effort. But as he walked me through the basement and we looked around, I spotted several things, including a very large photo booth, probably too big for us, but remember they were also sellers. We saw IKEA shelves, Metro shelves, tools like shop vacs. There's a pop-up canopy for selling out at a bazaar or a flea market. There was a stack of brand new poster shipping boxes. So I saw quite a few things that a reseller could use. So he told me for the effort of coming over to help him clear that out, because remember, they've got stagers coming in order to sell the real estate. And often in these situations, it's the real estate that has the real money. All right, so tomorrow, I don't know if I want to call it a job or a task, but I'll be spending the day loading the trailer and hauling back a trailer load into my already full buildings here at the lake. Yeah, it should be exciting. I actually have skipped a couple of evening auctions because I knew this job was coming. And given a choice between bidding on some auction lots or going out to do a free pickup and going through the remnants, gleaning from someone moving out of the country, I will pick the gleaning. The buy-in price, simply the fuel and the transport time. I'll take you over with a camera tomorrow with me, and if he doesn't mind, which I don't think he does, we'll shoot a little bit of footage of what we found in his basement. But this afternoon, I'm going to be emptying the truck and getting it ready. Emptying all the auction lots I just brought home. Lots of ephemera, old film projectors, and he had about, must have been 12, 15 piano dollies that he'd been using in the basement. So I now have a huge new collection of piano dollies, some moving blankets, that type of thing, right? Simply for the effort of bringing them home. Now this is what we call the multi-purpose center for our community. It's often where Rose comes to play cards. Right next to it, that's where the water department and maintenance guys hang out. And next to that is one of the big tanks that provides us water. There's the big tank. Yeah, that's part of our water supply system. And of course, there's the hydrovac. But let me pick up Rose. Now, Rose picked up her car on schedule. So what color is that?
It's got a metallic bluish color to it.
But it is certainly fancier than the toaster. This, I believe, is a 2020. I'll have to confirm that. It's a Ford. It's the titanium variant, which of course to me means trouble, but to Rose it means all the bells and whistles she could ever want. Now it has some features which I do approve of, like all-wheel drive. We do get winter occasionally, lots of rain. Here you can see it's the titanium variant. It is a hatchback, it's an Escape, and it looks to be fully loaded for the year it was produced. Popular car. Rose decided that since the Kia was aging, it would be a good solution to a larger family problem. Teenage granddaughters. Well, Izzy's actually of age now at 21 and starting her third year of college, which is some distance from the house here. So rather than keep using the Greyhound to go back and forth, Rose thought the solution might be to turn the Kia over to Brandy so she can allocate it this summer and on into the fall between the granddaughters. Yeah, grown children do become a car demand. But Rose likes this. We picked it up from the New Zealand auctioneers, the guys who are headed for New Zealand, because they're leaving the country in a few days. And interestingly enough, when we went over to pick this up, I also picked up 2 sets of auction lots. They simply held them for me, knowing I was coming with Rose to pick up the car. Now, I've only ridden in this once when Rose gave it a test drive. I was in the back seat. She did point out one issue, though. When she drove it home yesterday, she didn't know how it functioned. You know, all those bells and whistles. So she's taken the owner's manual inside to study up on it. Now, when I buy a car or truck, I also do the same thing, but then I heavily ignore most of the advanced features in these vehicles. There are features in my truck, it's 10 years old. I haven't used them since, like the voice on the GPS. Bigger tires, all-wheel drive. Those I do appreciate. I believe it's turbo equipped. Rose went through the consumer reports for it, took a look at recalls, maintenance history. We did all that while having breakfast after the test drive. But she decided this was going to be her next vehicle. I appreciate the SUV. I appreciate the cargo capacity. It's a little bit greater than her Kia, but not all that much. As you can see, it fits in basically the same spot. The Kia is now down to Brandy's. We'll get Rose's impression as she drives it and gets used to it. But this has got the kind of thing like the glass panel that sticks up and you can look through it, but it projects your speed, right, rather than having the gauge. But often it's redundancy. It'll still have a dash gauge and the new feature. It's got a backup camera. And it also has a tow hitch. Though, for practical purposes, I don't think you could really do much more than jockey around a small, nearly empty trailer with the towing capacity of this. She picked up her plates on the way home, which is an important factor because the seller, he cleared the title, got it from the bank, and then he transferred it to Rose, but he's leaving the country. So Rose went right over to DMV, paid the taxes, and transferred the title to make sure there wasn't going to be any paperwork or signature problem as the seller left the country. Yeah, they're going to New Zealand, and that brings up a new opportunity. Look at me, it's time to finally, yeah, you're Sandra D. It's time to start dealing with these roofs. Now, it's been a couple years since we've done this, and it's one of the reasons we cut back the bank and put in the retaining wall, because we wanted to be able to safely put up a scaffold or a ladder to do this. The original builders, the people who set it before us, they just didn't leave enough room between the bank and the building. So yeah. We've also cut down one of the trees that contributed to this. Even though the neighbors have a tree over here, that still contributes. That's why there's more at this end than at this end. But we'll do the white garage, then we'll do the carport down the hill, and then we'll do the green garage, kind of in that order. Well, we've positioned the equipment, so now Rose can go replace her Crocs with some tennis shoes, and she'll go ahead and do the roof and the gutter while I start unloading the truck. And by then her arms should be tired and we'll swap. Tarp should help with the debris because we really don't want to fill up the walkway. Tall ladder, faster than a scaffold, but we'll see how this works. So as timing often works out, the truck's in full sun, but I don't want to wait till evening to get this emptied because I need to refill it with empty totes, IKEA bags, maybe a hand truck, whatever else we're going to need to move tomorrow's work. All right, back of the truck, small bins, piano dollies, and a bin or two of stock. Inside the truck, most of the auction lots I picked up. All right, first group of items out of the truck, small storage bins, many with lids, some without. But as we've shifted our inventory to smaller items like patches and challenge coins and things like that, storage is easier in smaller bins. You're not going through a bin like that one over there, searching for something the size of a silver dollar. Now, one of these I just pulled off a piece of tape that said scanned. And like I say, he was an ephemera seller. He ran like 3 antique booths and then did online sales. So a scanner would be a useful tool for an ephemera seller. Now, I also use the small bins for sorting. That's why I don't worry about whether they all have lids or not. This, for instance, was a sort out of sockets, American-made, old brands, vintage, drivers, Powercraft, spark plugs, KAL. Up here you've got some Allen, and that works very well because then I can lot them up, try to either mate them up as sets, replace missing ones from a full set, or just sell off some of those brands like Proto or Snap-on. Now, I didn't get the final full count on these, and there's probably even more in the basement. You can see that there's another stack up inside the truck. But he basically had 3 styles. These are solid ones, nice heavy-duty casters. You can see the finish on them here. These are the smaller ones. These often come from places like Harbor Freight and similar retailers, but on this large one here, you can see this one's a U-line. So if I keep any for my own use, it'll probably be the U-line. Now here's a solid one, also a Franklin, and if you look real close, it says Harbor Freight. So this is Franklin is Harbor Freight's new branding for such things. Now here's the competition for Harbor Freight. If you look closely, Northern Tool. Northern Tool was another catalog operation, still is as far as I know, and they used to be considered slightly better than Harbor Freight. But these days, Harbor Freight has made some inroads. And I filmed a video last time I was at Harbor Freight. I just have never gotten it into the editor. Maybe I should bump that one up. This one, Haulmaster. Now that's the older brand I'm used to from Harbor Freight. If you look over here, you can see Harbor Freight. So there's the first half. Here's the second group. Just because I was there at the right time and told him I could help him clear his house to get it ready to go on the market, so that didn't interfere with their move to New Zealand. Now, 2 weeks ago, a haul like this, it would have gone into the agate off-site storage rooms, but agate has been sold and cleared. In fact, I swung past it yesterday, and in addition to the old Ford truck, it's now got a Montana fifth wheel and a car there. So the new tenant has moved in. So I've put them in an oversized tote here. That's 9 of the small ones, 1 of the mediums. So that's 10 of these piano dollies. These all look to be Harbor Freight. Now, why did one guy have so many? Well, he lived in an old house downtown with a basement. It's where he stored his inventory. And from time to time, he had a moisture problem on the floor. So his solution? Pick up the boxes, pick up the bins, keep them off the floor, and allow them to move around. Some of what I'll be picking up tomorrow will be rolling carts. But it's an excellent example of recognizing an opportunity when you see it. He was a guy with a problem. I have the time, I have the effort, I have the tools to help solve his problem. I get the product. A win-win. 4 large ones, 2 of the solid ones, 10 of the small and mediums. And of course, I'm putting them down here with the books. But I don't want to leave them here very long. And that creates a question. How do I flip them in quantity quickly? I could run a Facebook ad and offer all of them, or I could trickle them into the auction. One of the problems with the auctions? If you put too much of the same product in at the same time, you kill your own market price. I'll give that some thought. But we won't want them to stay down here for long, because we don't want them covered in dust, as with the carpets. So maybe Facebook will be my answer. Next, more movie projectors. This one I bought at his last auction. These he just sent along because they were in the basement. He hadn't gotten to sorting everything in the basement in order to run it up in that last auction. And that's another opportunity for me. I'll put these down with the first few sets I got from him, and as I go through them, there should be some more profit here, either as functional units, repair units, or parts. Doing that while it's shady over here is a great idea. Tarp's catching most of it. Rose will just work her way down. Not easy, but I think that handle extends too. This one's actually a flat screen mount. And I'm thinking about clearing part of my desk and putting a larger flat screen connected to my laptop so that when I'm editing YouTube videos, I can see the fine details in the editing line easier. Now, an auction is an excellent way to source items like this because often people either don't know what they're for or they don't recognize them as value as they're running through the lots looking for the high-ticket, high-turnover items that will easily make them a profit. But I find that finding the items that will help me outfit my operation just as much value to me in the point of cost avoidance. Sneak peek at a couple of auction lots. This one are matchbooks, and I've already got one group in the barn to do, but this one over here, this was the one, Russian collectible. That's what I thought would make the purchase worthwhile. Over here, more cards. Yeah, I got 2 big lots. I paid up for them, but some of the chem card sets, the double sets, They should bring me $20, $30 a piece. Now here's an example of the way this auction seller did his lots. Everything related to medical in the way of ephemera that he had, and a book. Now the book will have enough value to pay for the lot and make a profit. These I didn't even look at to see, but these will probably end up going up as one group onto eBay. It'll help we'll deal with that whole issue these days of shipping inversion and how to most effectively and efficiently price your products to interest the buyers even with the shipping increases after 12 July. Here's a small point about marking bins with tape. I prefer tape to Sharpie, but you'll notice that the yellow masking tape, it's stuck on there too good. I prefer the blue painter's tape or the green painter's tape, but if you're going to let your bin stay marked for years, it'll be hard to get that yellow tape off without some form of glue off and effort. And since I reuse my bins over and over and the inventory in them changes, the blue tape or labels with clear tape are what I prefer. Another group, but this one I didn't pay for, he sent it along. Essential oils. Yeah, these will probably go to Brandy if she could use them in her soap making business, side business. If not, I will put these up on Facebook because you can see some are open. And I don't like to ship open oil bottles to eBay. Well, that's the back of the truck with the empty bins going back in for tomorrow. I'll refill them tomorrow and repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. Is that what they say? Now, the free portion of this job will also include some new or used packing blankets, which are always useful for a reseller. Not so much these days as I do smalls, but back when I used to move estates and households, it's a quick way to protect furniture and items like glass shelves. Now, one of the things I did when I downsized Seebeck is I made up a few kits where I gave somebody a dolly, maybe a piano dolly, a hand truck, a couple of moving blankets. You know, basically we made them a little kit. And I either sent those kits to auction or I ran them on Facebook. Rather than having people rent these from places like U-Haul, you could sell them at basically the rental rate. Now it's time to get the rest of the individual lots from the auction out of the back seat. I tell you, I've really found this extended cab with the tonneau cover to be very useful for the size of our business these days. Now here's another one of the free lots he set aside for me, knowing I was picking up projectors. These are bulbs. And he said that he actually couldn't donate these because they were glass. Well, I'll use them to replace any that are burnt out on the projectors I got from him, and then I'll check and see whether these are allowed on eBay, because these days some incandescents are prohibited. The bottom two, because this is 3 of these little totes, the bottom 2 have ephemera. And as I say, the bottom 2 held ephemera. So this may get lotted up and sent out in mass to a different auction. It may get put up in bulk on eBay. Some of it may have enough individual value if I theme it up. That, for instance, looks like heraldry. Some vintage stuff there. And as you can tell with a lot of ephemera sellers, it's all indexed and written on. Rosie's replacement fountain. This is the one that came in after the first arrived broken. At night, you get quite the light show off of these. And the fingers are interesting too that help center it, because she tells me the very first one she ever had, the fountain would drift over to the edge and it would simply pump all the water out of the bird bath. Now this lot, another one of the interests I have, aircraft ephemera. It brings up a point about media. On top here you have a 1955 Air Force military book about recognizing aircraft from the ground. Now that's a book that can ship media. But remember, media doesn't always allow for loose pages of books. Now here are some aeroplane magazines. I can lot those up and send those media if they don't have advertising, because that's another one of the rules. If these are more periodical than magazines with ads, I could send these media. Though it seems to be mattering less and less of late with the Ground Advantage prices coming down to the media prices. Is in this bag are loose pages, and loose pages cut out of books don't normally qualify for media, because you've got to have things like a minimum of 8 pages to call it a book or a booklet. It's an interesting fact as you sort out what can go media and what can't. And some of these items likely never would have qualified for media. For instance, this is a punch-out airplane kit. This one, it's more of a book. Again, punch-out airplane kit. There's the punch-out. But it probably isn't 8 pages, and it's likely it never had an ISBN number. So it would always had to have gone ground advantage. Progress on both projects continues. And I also picked up another load of 16mm movies. Some empty spools, and he said he found a few after he put up the auction lot, added them to my group. I actually don't like flip-top totes. These are actually made by Contico. I find that they break here, things snag on them. They're not built as thick as, say, the Rubbermaids. They do stack, but the weight tends to collapse them and break them down anyway. So when I get these with stock in them, I usually put, 5, 6, 7 of them together and sell them off because other people seem to like them. I also don't like the idea that dust and moisture settles down through the center seam. So when I do use these, I will often put a piece of brown paper over the top to prevent that from happening as much. Well, time for lunch. I've emptied the truck. Rose has about half the roof swept off. Yeah, good time to take a break. It's coming up on 3. For one thing, it's taken me longer to empty the truck and find spaces to put it. Since we took a load to the consignment auction, I guess a week ago, I do have some holes here and there, and some of these bins and boxes can go right into those holes. But it is getting tighter and tighter. And after tomorrow, when I pick up a trailer load, yeah, that'll need to be processed fairly quickly to put me back on my schedule for the summer. And here around the packing bench, I will need to deal with this ephemera, at least put it away in some boxes in order to do my packing after lunch. And one of the items I'll be picking up tomorrow, a couple more of these white folding tables. I've probably got enough here. I've even sold a few, but Brandy's always for her farm produce sale when she goes to the farmer's market. Now this tool is a T-post puller. It's often used around the gardens, the farm down at Brandy's. Our house in Seebeck, I had a couple of these, and I would use T-posts when I was doing firewood, splitting it, racking it, selling it by the face cord. I would drive in T-posts to hold the ends of the firewood racks. Rose would use them for trellises. Sometimes they're used to hold up stock panels. Brandy uses a lot of T-posts. Just as you use a T-post driver pounder to safely put the T-posts in the ground, this is the tool that removes them. Now, I don't have a lot of T-posts out here at the lake, but there are a couple of strays, and I figured I might as well pull them. So I asked Brandy to borrow the T-post puller. I used to keep a few of these around. In fact, this one might have even been the one I gave her, but we got rid of them when we left Seebeck. Time to put it to work. Now, basically, it's a lever and fulcrum. The post over here, the red piece that goes down and has a flat spot, it sits on the ground. The U-shaped piece, it wraps around the edges of the T-post. Here you can see the little notches. And when I push down on the lever, it'll force the post up out of the ground. That's the concept. And there's the first one popped out of the ground. Yeah, you simply go down on the handle, it lifts. If you run out of handle, you simply drop it back down a couple more notches and keep repeating. Now normally these go in the ground about a foot, and they come at 4, 5, 6, even 8 foot lengths. And they're really good for temporary fencing. I got, I think, 2 more of these to pop out. Now over here on this side of the property, there used to be a wooden fence with wooden posts. Still are remnants, and the neighbor wants to replace it. So on this end, behind all these arborvitaes, there's one of the old posts. There are a couple of T-posts. They would simply be in the way to build the new fence. There you can see one right there. I think there's another one. So I'm going to basically pull those out. No sense just having them pulled and thrown away when the new fence is built. Brandy can put these to use. And there we go. 10 minutes, 3 T-posts pulled. And you can see they need to have the dirt cleaned off them. Sometimes, even with the T-post puller, this can be a challenge. What I used to do when I had a bunch of these to pull is simply get a chain and use my tractor bucket if I could get the tractor in. Lift vertically, pop them out. And you can see the first one I pulled is about a foot shorter than the 2 green ones. Now the equivalent tool to put them in, a driver. Looks like a SWAT team's battering ram to pop a door, except it's hollow and goes down this end so that way you're not having to try to put the force of the drive just on the T-post like you would with a sledgehammer. Now, the only other place we have T-posts here on the property is when they put this little retaining wall in, and they use them to hold the retaining wall and make a handrail. And just the other day I was talking about how these rebar caps were failing over time, and I had got some T-post caps. These will stay even after the new fence. Now, sometimes if the ground is hard and just pushing down on the lever just doesn't do it, I've even taken a piece of pipe this size and made a cheater bar handle. More leverage. Longer handle, easier to do the pull. There you can see the pad that goes down on the ground. So Rose and I finished our tasks at about the same time. Of course, mine, I'd interrupt mine every time she was ready to move a section, and I'd come down and help dump the tarp, move the ladder, and empty the wheelbarrow and move her to the next section. I think she's going to get out her blower now and blow off the steps in the stoop, because the tarp just couldn't cover that as well as the rest. So we're loading off an alley with some pretty steep entrances. Had to separate the trailer from the truck because it wasn't the length to leave it attached, and there were some obstacles in my way of backing up. So most of this is coming out of the basement. So we're carefully packing, Rose is packing, and we're loading the trailer first, and then we'll load the truck, because it looks like we may get a little rain today. We emptied the truck this morning because we're headed back to Bremerton, to that old 1928 house, to look around one more time. Gentleman's flying out today, so we think we can get hold of all of his fans and window conditioners, Dyson vacs, that type of thing, extension cords, and we'll basically take another truckload. We didn't empty the trailer last night because it was probably close to 6 by the time I dropped Rose off at book club and then headed back here to the house. And frankly, carrying all that stuff out of the basement, I was a bit sore. But that happens. You feel good about helping somebody out who's on a pinch, who's got to leave, and he's got way too much stuff. I think he left it for way too long. We'll end up making some money for our effort. He'll have a clear house, or at least clearer, and then he won't have to pay so much to have hauled off by somebody like, You Got Junk. All right, Rose is out. We're ready to go. Well, back seat's full. Got a little bit more to load, the long stuff, which will come out the back. Some Afghans or quilts over there. Rose is running the vac down below, because when we're done, we'll take the shop vac.